Hey guys, SK here, back with another Clash Royale video, and the title of this video might actually be true. I'm not going to be sharing my own gameplay today, but rather that of Betfas. And so, if you're familiar with the Xbow community and my channel, you've probably heard of Betfas. If not, and you're just finding my channel out for the first time, welcome, I hope you enjoy your stay, and I'm going to be giving some context either way. So Betfas is a 3.0 Xbow Cycle player who many consider to be the best Xbow player in the world right now. I would say that he is probably the biggest cornerstone and inspiration in the 3.0 Xbow Cycle community right now. I would say that 7-4 was probably my biggest inspiration last year, but he did sadly retire, and now Betfas is one of the only players left who is still staying true to 3.0 Xbow Cycle on top ladder. So if we take a look at his profile right now, you can see that he has a #1 finish in the entire world on ladder, and he also has a #5 finish, #18 finish, many top 50, top 100 global tournament finishes, and many other top 50, top 100 ladder finishes as well, almost all of which were with 3.0 Xbow Cycle. Now, for his #1 finish in particular, he did snipe some players at the end and switch decks. However, he did also push up to above 8,600 trophies that season with 3.0 Xbow Cycle, and he, even if he didn't snipe, he was still able to get extremely high with 3.0 Xbow Cycle, and he does still play it for the most part. Most of the time. He does obviously switch to other decks, but Betfas is a really insane Xbow player and someone that I learn a lot from. So today I'm going to be sharing his gameplay with you guys from last season. So if we take a look, he did finish number 208 last season, which is amazing for someone like me or you guys, but actually really bad for someone like him. And so the thing is, he actually was able to push to above 8,600 trophies, all using 3.0 Xbow Cycle. Now, there were other Xbow players who finished amazingly last season, Aragon and Titan, two incredible Xbow players in their own right. They both finished top 30, I believe. Titan was number 11 and Aragon was number 29, if I'm not mistaken. However, they did both use Archer Queen, and this is not to knock them. Archer Queen is obviously an insanely strong card right now, one of the best in the entire game, and so it is obviously way better than Archers in Xbow Cycle and in almost any deck, so you can't really blame them for switching. However, it's interesting about Betfas is that he did not switch. I don't think he's ever played Xbow with Archer Queen on ladder, at least, and he always plays 3.0 Xbow Cycle for the most part, or maybe a few other decks when he untilts, but still, for the most part, he is playing 3.0 Xbow Cycle, and so he did push to over 8,600 trophies, which if we take a look at the ladder leaderboards of last season, he would have finished about top 50, because I believe he pushed to about 8,650 trophies, which puts him just around top 50. Would have been top 100 for sure, which is still absolutely insane. I also did play ladder last season, and I was able to finish number 773. That is a bit of a tangent, but yeah, I was really happy about that. But anyways, Betfas did unfortunately tilt last season, and he still finished really well, but honestly the reason that it's so impressive that he was even able to push up that high in the first place is because of the meta right now. I would say one of the worst metas in the entire game for 3.0 Xbow Cycle. There is a reason that people like Aragon and Titan switched to Xbow Archer Queen, and it's just that Archers are simply extremely hard to play right now. There's so many counters to Xbow on top ladder right now. There are a lot of decks. One of the best decks in the entire game right now is Royale Hogs Earthquake Cycle with Archer Queen, which if you just hear the deck name, you can probably assume it's going to hard counter Xbow Cycle, at least 3.0 Xbow Cycle. Even Xbow with Archer Queen, it does. And there's also a lot of Hog Earthquake, one of the best decks in the entire game. There's also a lot of Mega Knight Ram Rider Lightning, one of the other best decks in the game, almost all of which these decks I'm mentioning do run Archer Queen. Mega Knight's kind of popular because it does counter the Royal Hogs Earthquake deck, but yeah, so Betfas did unfortunately tilt. He played a ton of Royal Hogs Earthquake, a ton of all these decks that I'm telling you about, and all of which counter Xbow, and he was still able to push. He gave up in the last few hours of the season, so it is a bit unfortunate in that regard that he didn't want to play, but I mean, it is understandable. It's such a bad meta, so hard, and he still did insane considering he didn't even play at the very end of the season. But yeah, I'm going to be sharing Betfas gameplay with you guys today. Sorry it's a bit of a long intro, just closing up on 5 minutes. I did just want to give a kind of brief introduction to Betfas and his history and his stats as a player. Absolutely insane player. and so I'm going to be sharing his gameplay, live ladder gameplay from last season, which did get him to above 8,600 trophies. I did record a lot of it. I do record quite a bit of Betfas' gameplay, and I am friends with him, so I'm really lucky I'm able to talk to him and watch him play as well. I learn a lot from him. And so I'm going to be sharing it with you guys today. So usually I do upload some Betfas videos, some Arda videos, really insane Xbow players that I'm lucky enough to call my friends. But I know that a lot of you guys aren't able to watch people like Betfas for yourself in-game, so I'm happy I'm able to have this platform to share with you guys. But the difference is I'm going to be commentating over his games right now in this video. Usually I just put them together and edit them together and call it a day. But the thing is, a lot of you guys do enjoy commentary as well, so this is kind of going to be the best of both worlds. You know, I can get some really good Xbow gameplay, and I can also add commentary, because Betfas doesn't do his own commentary. I could give my own gameplay with commentary, but of course I'm not going to play perfectly, and definitely not as well as Betfas does. So, going to be sharing Betfas' games with you guys. A lot of you did actually request for a video like this, where I analyze other people, other top Xbow players play the game, and how they play and the decisions that they make, and share it with you guys. So let me know if you enjoy this kind of idea in the comments below, and I could possibly do more of it instead of just editing his videos together and posting them as raw gameplay. But yeah, we're going to get into the games. I'll be explaining, you know, each of the matches, the matchups, and the decisions that Betfas is making. And yeah, again, apologies for the long intro, but let's get right into things. So getting into the first match here, and Betfas is up against Hashirama from Chasmac Gaming, who's going to be one of the best players in the entire world with this Mega Knight Ramrider Lightning deck. So for those of you that don't know the deck, the last three cards in the deck are going to be Electro Spirit, as we see come down there, Ramrider, and then of course the Lightning. So Betfas is going to have a tough matchup up ahead for him in this game. And so notice how he's cycling archers in the same lane. Stacking archers is going to be huge against any lightning deck that doesn't have arrows, and the reason for that is because lightning just doesn't get much value against archers, and so if they don't have arrows, they don't really have a great way to take out the archers. You don't obviously want a lightning against 3 elixir archers, so stacking them against any lightning matchup is going to be pivotal. So Betfas is going to go for a perfectly timed skeletons against the bandit, and then go for a Tesla against the Ramrider, and Hashirama goes for a very aggressive lightning and single elixir, which I don't think Betfas was expecting. But he's still going to take a bunch of damage, and notice how he went for a log and fireball, spaced them out as well, not right away, so that he could reset the Ramrider's charge twice. Now he's going to activate King off the E-Spirit, which is going to be huge, because activated King Tower is going to be really good against any Bridgespam deck. Notice how Betfas went for the Electro Spirit up by the bridge instead of closer to the tower, because he knew the opponent was probably going to go for Prediction Snowball, and so he didn't want to give value by clumping all his troops together. Betfas is now predicting the Ramrider in the back with this Xbow, and he does get a connection for it, so really nice prediction by Betfas. And notice how he's also protecting his Xbow very much because of the fact that he's down damage, he needs a connection, and so he values it a lot. Queen ability comes down here, but Betfas is able to just control it easily, take one hit on the tower, and then Tesla cleans up. Opponent is going for a ghost in the back, anticipating Betfas' Xbow. Betfas still predicts the Mega Knight in the back with the Xbow, which is pretty impressive actually, because the ghost was coming down, but Betfas is now going to control the Xbow and support it really well, because he wants another connection. And Mega Knight should just be able to be kited into the middle with Skeletons and Electro Spirit, which is back in cycle, and you can see that Activated King is helping out a lot as well. Mega Knight does jump, but Betfas is going to go for another Xbow with this Knight, and Hashirama won't have enough for a Mega Knight right in time, so Queen's going to get taken out, and Betfas is cycling back to another Knight here. You want to cycle Knights and have them for most Mega Knights or Royal Ghosts, and Hashirama was forced to go for a Lightning there, because if he didn't, he would have had to get overwhelmed by the Xbow, and he probably wouldn't have been able to defend. But Betfas, knowing he's up Elixir, is going to go with an Xbow again, and Hashirama just barely gets the Archer Queen down. Betfas going to go for a last-minute Fireball, force the Snowball out, and get yet another connection. However, he's still in quite a bad spot, because it is a Lightning deck, and his tower is still lower HP than his opponent's. So we'll see what Betfas does here. He goes for yet another Xbow, and can just go for a Knight for the Ghost, but this does mean he won't have Knight in cycle for the Xbow and the Mega Knight, which means he's probably going to have to either cycle back or let the Xbow die. Looks like he chooses to cycle back to a Knight, very fast cycling by Betfas, and this is going to be a really high value Fireball. I was just saying, pretty sure he was going to go for it because everything was clumped up there. And Bandit and Ghost are coming down, but Betfas is again able to just control very easily with Skeletons, and he's probably going to go for another Xbow, except the opponent went for a Mega Knight, so Betfas changes game plan very quickly and just fireballed because he needs tower damage. Hashirama is opting to Spell Cycle, and so Betfas is going to have to punish him. He goes for a high Tesla, Mega Knight is taken out, and Hashirama is not back to a Mega Knight right away. He's back to one now, so Betfas is going to fireball again, cycle back to another one, and then force Hashirama to Lightning on the Xbow. Since he doesn't Lightning the Xbow, I doubt he's going to be able to defend this Xbow pressure, because it's just too much. There's a Knight down, there's archers down. Betfas even gets insane fireball value on the Bandit and Ram Rider, and Log as well. Quad archers are on the field, and he's just going to get an insane win against Hashirama, which is a really hard matchup for 3.0 Xbow Cycle. And that is going to put him at 8,571 trophies, number 77 in the world. Absolutely insane game by Betfas. And so this first matchup, Mega Knight Ram Rider Lightning, is going to be one of the harder matchups, as I said before, in the entire meta for 3.0 Xbow Cycle. And the reason for that is because of the Archer Queen and the Lightning. Archer Queen means that they can not only get away with Archer Queens on your Xbows, but also have a 3-card cycle, which means it's going to be hard to outcycle them. There is also just a lot of pressure in the deck, and a lot of troops that can punish you for making a mistake. So takeaways from what Betfas played there are that you usually want to go for Xbows at the perfect timings. So that would be if the opponent cycles a Ram Rider in the back, or Mega Knight in the back, or Archer Queen in the back. Those are going to be the 3 timings, and obviously Hashirama is a good enough player to know that he shouldn't be cycling Archer Queens in the back, so Betfas instead predicted Hashirama's Mega Knights and Ram Riders in the back, and was able to get Xbow connections and Xbow punishments that way. Also, like I said at the start, Betfas was stacking archers in the same lane. He started it very early on, because in a lightning deck that doesn't have arrows, there's going to be no easy way to take out those archers, so that's going to be a way to maximize the value. Another thing Betfas did was he went with quite a bit of pre-Teslas in that matchup, since they'll pretty much almost always get value. And last thing I'd like to say is that Betfas was able to get an Xbow connection, but since he knows that he needs Xbow connections in this matchup to win, he defended his Xbows very well. He didn't just let them die and outcycle constant Xbows. He knew that if he was able to make one Xbow count, he would have to make it go all the way and get a lot of damage, and he did just that. Also, he did activate King off the E-Spirit. There is another way to activate King with the Bandit and the Mega Knight, so activated King is also going to be very huge in that matchup overall, and Betfas just played an amazing game. Alright, so Betfas is going to find himself into the next match up against Nikoko, one of the better players on top ladder right now, constantly high on ladder, and it's looking like it's going to be Bridgespam, a new meta version of Bridgespam with the Archer Queen. And so Archer Queen ability does come down, Betfas gets a really nice log to also clip the Heal Spirit, and this is looking like it's going to be the new meta version of Bridgespam, and I believe the last 2 cards in Nikoko's deck are going to be Barbarian and Elite Barbarian. So you will notice that he doesn't have any big spells in this deck, and so Betfas is going to take advantage of that and likely play very defensively, because if the opponent does have E-Barbs, as you can see, just a pre-Tesla in the middle comes down, standard placement, and almost anything that Nikoko cycles will just go into the Tesla. So very smart Tesla by Betfas, and very good play as well. So Royal Ghost coming down, Betfas is just going to opt to fireball the Magic Archer, and then Skeleton surround the Ghost. Against Royal Ghost, you always want to surround it with Skeletons if you can. That's going to be the easiest way to get value. Bandit's coming down and dashing, and that was actually a really good Bandit, because it kind of screwed Betfas' cycle over. As you can see, he doesn't have Knight in cycle now against this defense, so he's going to log the Bram back. Log also does protect the Battle Ram, protect the Tesla from the charging Battle Ram. Does reset the charge, but Betfas is going to take 1 Archer Queen hit, and Knight does force out a Royal Ghost, but it is going to be a full health Royal Ghost, so Betfas is probably going to surround it with Skeletons again. Interesting to see. Okay, so Heal Spirit comes down with the Bandit instead, and that's why Betfas didn't go for Skeletons right away, because Heal Spirit would actually just invalidate the Skeletons. Very annoying card in that regard, and so Betfas did a really good job of going Knight for the Ghost and choosing for a different route against the Bandit instead. And so he's going to go for another pre-Tesla here. Nikoko is pressuring very hard. Betfas is back to a Knight though, and notice how he's playing this Knight to protect his Tesla, to maximize the value out of this Tesla, Bandit comes down, Betfas is going to go Archers, and also Archers in the same lane, like in the previous matchup against Mega Knight Ram Rider Lightning, also going to be pretty good in this matchup because Nikoko doesn't have any big spells in this deck. Notice how Betfas was also fine to just take that Archer Queen damage in the left, because he's not really that stressed about it. That's his higher HP tower. Now it's going to be a pretty tricky defense, actually. Nikoko's spamming pretty hard here, and Tesla's going to come down, but Queen ability comes out as well. Betfas does protect his archers to DPS down the Queen afterwards, and he is going to go for archers to take care of the battle ram. However, he is going to be down quite a bit of elixir now, and he's going to have to contend with this counter push by Nikoko. So we're likely not going to see any offensive expos by Betfas for quite a while. I would even say a defensive expo wouldn't be a bad idea, although he obviously doesn't have any time to go for a defensive expo right now. Nikoko's just pressuring constantly, and so Betfas is just defending well constantly. So Queen gets taken out. Betfas is still doing really well for himself, actually, not even that low on tower damage, even though he is losing. Nikoko, again, doesn't have any big spells. And Nikoko is going to predict the Knight with the Magic Archer, but interesting Magic Archer placement because it doesn't actually hit the tower, and so the only real source of damage in this matchup you're going to have to worry about as an Expo player is going to be that Magic Archer on the bridge. So we're going to see how Betfas deals with that. And again, Archer's same lane, Nikoko doesn't have any way of taking them out, and so they're just going to do a great job at getting a lot of value. Now that we're in kind of a reset situation, Betfas is probably going to go for a defensive expo, which is I was going to say, but he chooses for a Tesla instead, and honestly both options are fine. I personally do the defensive expos quite a bit in this matchup, as one does come down now, and so yeah, I was kind of expecting it eventually, because again, with no big spell in this deck, there's no real great way to deal with a defensive expo. At the same time, I believe Nikoko does still have Elite Barbarians, hasn't revealed them yet, so going for an offensive expo would just be a very silly mistake. Now he's going to get to go for an offensive expo because he does have a defensive expo alive, but you understand why he didn't go for one before, because if the opponent just goes Elite Barbarians on the expo, they're just going to get taken out. And so Betfas is going to protect his expo with everything right now. He has a Knight, Tesla at the bridge, Archers, and Expo is just doing constant, relentless pressure. Expo is on tower, and Betfas gets a really nice connection. Nikoko going to go for a desperate Magic Archer at the bridge, but it doesn't work out, and Betfas takes the win. So, very interesting matchup there. I do think Nikoko's last card was Elite Barbarians, but he, interestingly enough, chose not to play it the entire game. So, not sure why that's the case, but Betfas does get a really nice win, and that's going to put him at 8,595 trophies, 71 in the world, and just barely off 8,600. So, that matchup is actually decent for Expo, I would say. Not amazing for Expo, because you saw Nikoko was able to pressure so hard in single elixir, and Betfas never really had time to think, time to relax. It was just constant, relentless aggression, and so in that matchup, Betfas played it perfectly. He just defended the entire time, and only went in triple elixir once he already had a defensive Expo down, because again, like I said, in that matchup, if they do have Elite Barbarians, they also do have Barbarrel and Heal Spirit, and they also have Bandit and Royal Ghost, so they don't even have a slow cycle, actually. Heal Spirit, Royal Ghost, Barbarrel, and Bandit are 9 elixir total, which is only 2 elixir more than 3.0 Expo Cycle's 7 elixir fastest cycle. So they're actually not going to have a slow cycle, and there's no real point of going in with offensive Expos. If they can just get a free E-Barbs counter push off of it, they can just get really good Barbarrel value, really good Heal Spirit value. So Betfas just defended the whole game, didn't take any Magic Archer damage on his tower for the most part, and was able to break through at the very end with a really nice defensive Expo into offensive Expo setup. So we are into the next match, and Betfas is up against Son Goku, a giant graveyard player with bowler and arrows, and so I do apologize, I'm actually a bit late to this match. Betfas seems to have already gotten about 3,000 damage with an Expo connection, which is just insane. I'm assuming that Son Goku went for a giant at the back first play, as these players do, and Betfas just punished him with an Expo and got a really nice connection. So, anyways, he's going to have a Night Witch in this deck as well. Betfas goes for an Expo, and Giant is forced out, and that means that he's not going to be able to go for a Giant in front of the Night Witch, which is what Betfas wants, because Night Witch is going to be hugely problematic for Expo. since the only real way to kill it is going to be Fireball Log. That's going to be a negative elixir trade, and you just don't want to get into that situation. So Betfas is probably going to keep up aggression quite a lot in this matchup to not let Son Goku build up a huge giant graveyard Night Witch arrows push, because this is going to be one of Xbow's worst matchups in the entire game. Like I said, he goes for an Xbow to force out the bowler, but the way you want to play this matchup is usually pretty aggressive, and also you do need to win in single elixir. Like, Betfas got a huge connection. I wish I could have seen how that happened, but I'm just going to assume that Son Goku went for a giant in the back, because giant graveyard players literally do go for giant first play at the back. It's just ridiculous how they get away with it, but I think Betfas punished him and caught the bowler with a knight. That's how we got the connection. But we are going to be in a defensive situation now, so Betfas is going to defend with the Tesla, and Cycle Archer's same lane. This is going to be huge against any graveyard deck, especially giant graveyard. He's also going to go for a Fireball and the Night Witch, and probably go for a nice log, and try and hit the Night Witch with that as well, which he was able to clip. And E-Spirit comes down, but you can see the problem with this matchup. So much damage comes in, because they can just snowball, they can arrows your archers away, and the giant is just such a big tank, especially because of the giant buff, which I really wasn't expecting at all, honestly, in the less balanced changes. But giant graveyard at the bridge right here. Notice how Betfas this time is holding off and going for his archers right away. Goes for them now, but he didn't go for them right away, and so the reason for that was because he didn't want them to just get arrowed right away. So we just delayed the archers a bit. Sometimes you can do that. Now he's going to go for an Xbow because Giant's going to be out of cycle. And Betfas is going to reset the bowler with an E-Spirit plus Tesla. So Giant's going to be forced to come down. If anything except a Giant came down, Betfas could have just either taken it out or cycled back to another Xbow and forced the Giant out anyway. So Son Goku is going to play his arrows now. Betfas is probably going to go for an Xbow with this Knight. Although the Knight actually pretty much got taken out, he does still go for the Xbow, but Knight is solo on HP. Betfas is going to go for a Tesla to pull the Giant away from the Xbow, and going to go for a Knight as well. Just ultimate bridge battle against this deck, and he's really defending his heart out against the push, really trying to get an Xbow connection. And so Betfas is also cycling very fast. Probably back to another Xbow already, actually, but Son Goku is going to have a bowler in hand. And so Betfas, you can see that now he's kind of playing more patiently, knows that Son Goku is probably going to expect a bowler, an Xbow at the bridge, and so he instead chose to play archers in the back there. Giant Graveyard comes down as Betfas goes for an Xbow at the same time. Log and Skeletons to take out the Graveyard, but he is going to be down damage. He's going to have to find a way to force himself to get the win here. He's going to choose to do that by starting out with Fireball Cycling, and so he's going to go for an Xbow as well. Giant comes down. If a Graveyard comes down right now, Betfas could cut it out of range with this Tesla placement exactly, and he would actually probably get a connection. So he's going to go for another Fireball. Really smart play by Betfas right now, because notice how he's forcing the Giant out, but not letting the opponent go for a Giant Graveyard push at the same time. I'm going to expect an E-Spirit to come down on these bats, and he's actually just a Fireball Log away from taking the tower, so that's going to be a win against an impossible matchup, Giant Graveyard with Bowler, and Betfas is going to be at 8,600 trophies with number 57 in the entire world. Absolutely insane gameplay by Betfas in this matchup, which I would say is genuinely almost 100-0 in the opponent's favor. Like, I really don't know. I think the only reason he lost is because he went for a Giant first play, which is just honestly ridiculous because you shouldn't get to do that play. But Betfas did get 3,000 damage off of it, so I would say a well-deserved punishment there. But yeah, just a really tough matchup, especially because of the Night Witch and Bowler. Usually Giant Graveyard decks only have one big tank in the form of the Giant, but the reason this matchup is harder than almost any other Giant Graveyard deck, or almost any other Graveyard deck in general, is because they also do have the Bowler, which is just if they play a Giant and it's out of cycle, you could usually punish, but they have a Bowler in this deck as well. Plus they have the Bats and the Night Witch to just force out a lot of pressure and exert a lot of pressure onto your defense. And if you don't Fireball Log the Night Witch, it's going to be really hard to take out behind the Giant, since you're probably going to make taking out the Giant your main priority. So very interesting deck and very hard matchup. Thankfully, not very common in the meta. Usually other Giant Graveyard versions are more common, but Betfas was somehow able to beat it with almost perfect defense and just absolutely insane gameplay and triple elixir there. Just honestly really well played, forcing out the Giant, but not letting him go for a Giant at the same time. going for a graveyard at the same time, because he was also pressuring with Xbows at the same time. So just really well played by Betfas for an insane matchup for 8,600 trophies and one of the worst metas in the entire game for 3.0 Xbow Cycle. Alright, so Betfas is going into the next match here, up against a Japanese player, and I apologize I'm a bit late to the match, but it is going to be Royal Hogs Earthquake Cycle, which is, again, like I said, the hardest matchup in the entire meta right now for 3.0 Xbow Cycle. And it's going to be very tricky because this is just such a hard counter, but Betfas is going for an Expo because the opponent just used their Royal Hogs, and Betfas is also going to be up 3 Elixir. So he gets a small connection here. Notice how he went for an Expo in the right lane because the opponent already had some damage in the left, and Betfas knows that an Earthquake log is going to come down on the Expo, which almost completely destroys it, by the way, which is why this is such a hard matchup. Because Expo is such a weak card to spells, and Earthquake just destroys it completely. But Betfas went in the right lane, because the left was already his weaker tower, and he didn't want to get even more damage racked up there. Betfas does just fireball the queen at the bridge there, which is a very reasonable play to make. He's going to have to go for a high Tesla now. Notice this Tesla placement. It's going to be the anti-Earthquake Tesla placement, and it's going to be very important in this matchup. So the opponent does waste their Earthquake. Not really waste, but because they can cycle back to it so easily. But I'm assuming Betfas is going to go for an Expo here. Yep, exactly, because the opponent just used their Earthquake. So Betfas is going to go for a Knight, and unfortunately Knight doesn't come down for the Archer Queen. If it did catch the Archer Queen, Betfas might actually have gotten a huge connection there, but he still gets a really nice connection. And low Tesla this time to kind of force out an Earthquake so that Betfas can counter push with these archers here, which I'm assuming he's going to go for an Expo with right now, as he does, and he has a really nice counter push again. So low cannon's also going to be very annoying for this deck, for Expo as well, because of the fact that they just stall Expos out for only 3 Elixir, but Betfas does get another nice connection here, and he is somehow in the lead against this impossible matchup. Just incredibly impressive gameplay by Betfas right now, and he is again going for a low Tesla because he wants to force out an Earthquake. He knows that the opponent is probably gonna waste their Earthquake, which means he won't have it right away for the Expo, and so Betfas goes for a really nice log there. Notice how he's not really too concerned with tower damage. He knew that he wanted to go for a log to get really good defensive value against all those pigs, so he just went for it. Now Royal Hog's gonna come down, and Betfas goes for a high Tesla, is gonna have to let the Expo die. And again, notice how he switched immediately back to the left lane, even though he was going for the right before, because his right side tower is now weaker, so he has to do this, absolutely has to. And so he's going to log this Archer Queen back. If the ability comes down, Betfas is going to get a connection, so this is one way to punish Archer Queen, and Betfas actually gets a connection here. The opponent kind of messes up by letting the Queen go invisible again, but Betfas just has the perfect punish, perfect micro gameplay to capitalize on it, and now he really just has to spell cycle, doesn't even need to get another Expo connection. So he's going to log these Royal Hogs and probably get archers and maybe even skeletons down to DPS them down, because Tesla does fall. Gonna go for a Knight for this Archer Queen. Now he's not really fireballing the Queens. He's actually gonna go for an Expo here because the opponent's going very aggressive in the right. So Betfas is trying to force out the Earthquake in the left lane, which will be really great because then he can just go for a fireball in the tower, and Expo does actually lock on again. So just incredibly impressive gameplay by Betfas, beating pretty much the hardest counter in the entire game right now. I'm actually amazed. He's just beaten Mega Knight Round Rider Lightning. He won against Giant Graveyard with Bowler. Now he wins against Royal Hogs Earthquake. Just insane gameplay by Betfas, and so this matchup is going to be interesting. It is, I would say, a good player should almost never lose it, but also a good Expo player can punish a good Royal Hogs player, as Betfas did there. You know, this is top ladder, above 8,400 trophies right now, so it's not any surprise that Betfas was able to punish, but the reason he was able to was because of the fact that he played very specifically and almost surgically. He went for high Teslas when he wanted to force out an Earthquake, either on the Tesla or just not on the tower. But then he went for a lower Tesla later on, which you'll notice, and that is to force out Earthquakes onto the tower so that Betfas can go for an Expo and the opponent won't have an Earthquake right away in cycle. So really smart by Betfas. Then he also was able to get Expo connections, and once he did get those connections, he defended them really well and just switched to a really smart model of spell cycling at the very end there to take the win against, again, pretty much the hardest matchup in the entire meta for Expo right now. Alright, so we're into a match where Betfas is up against Bad Bunny, loves Logbait, who is going to be one of the best Logbait players in the entire world for those of you that don't know him. So this is going to be a Logbait matchup most likely, and Bad Bunny is either going to have Tesla or Inferno Tower with this Logbait version. We'll find out which version it is, but this is going to be a very tricky matchup because they have a rocket for the Xbow, and they have a relatively fast cycle. And it's just going to be quite hard, but we'll see how Betfas navigates it. He's going to go for an Xbow now because Valk is out of cycle, which is going to be the main tank for the Xbow. So Betfas is able to force out a rocket and get some tower damage there. So just really smart Xbow, knowing Valk wasn't in cycle, knowing that a rocket would be forced out. And now he's going to go for predictive Tesla in the left lane to, not even predictive, but just a pre-Tesla to kind of shut down any implications of Princess at the bridge. And now he goes for a fireball, so he's just fireball cycling. Gonna go for a log, which unfortunately misses one goblin, but it's still fine. And Betfas is going for archers in the same lane, not even splitting them, which is interesting. I've never actually thought of doing that myself against this matchup, but I guess it makes sense because they don't really have a big spell for the archers. Like I was mentioning with the lightning matchup, you don't really want to rocket archers, so it does make sense. He's gonna go for an expo now because he has archers kind of pushing as well, and he does get I think he got a small connection there to the tower, or the guards tanked, either way. Going for Xbows to force out rockets here, and not just spamming Xbows, but going for a pretty smart, timely Xbows. Now he's going to go for an Xbow. This time it's because he wants to outcycle the rocket, which he does successfully. Tesla comes down, and I'm expecting to see a fireball here, or a Tesla. Yep, Tesla comes down, and unfortunately this Xbow is going to die, because guards are just so hard to take out without log. It's kind of funny. They're easy to take out if you have log, but since it's Logbait, Betfas is trying to save his log, and so he's not really going to want to waste a log there. So Princess comes down again, and we'll see Betfas is just going to take the fireball, and he can't really go in right now because Tesla's on the map, so he's choosing to wait a bit. Now he's going to go for skeletons. Notice how he's also cycling cards in the middle here, because he doesn't want any Princess at the bridge nonsense. He doesn't want to take a bunch of damage against Princess at the bridge, which is going to be a really good play against Xbow. Now he's going to go for an Xbow in the middle. He went for one in the middle there instead of at the side because the Valk was still alive, but he did just want to go for an Xbow, so it was the next best option. Now he's going to get really nice fireball value actually on both the Tesla and the Princess, and going to get an Xbow that's healthy, forces out a Princess, and we are entering triple elixir now. Rocket should be coming down here. If Rocket doesn't come down, Bad Bunny's kind of messing up his cycle because he did just go for a Valk. And then a rocket, not a rocket first, and so Betfas is just going to fireball cycle and probably go for more Xbows to pressure and force out rockets. If Bad Bunny rockets the tower, Betfas is going to pressure very hard with Xbows. He's going to fireball on the tower again, and I'm surprised Bad Bunny isn't going for a rocket now. I feel like he could have gone for a rocket after that second fireball came down. But because Betfas is just going for pre-Teslas in the left, just shut down any possible situations where Princess at the bridge would come down. Now Valk was out of cycle, so really good Expo by Betfas. Gonna try and outcycle the Valk. Valk comes down again, but Betfas is gonna defend this Expo. If a rocket comes down, Betfas is probably gonna get a rocket onto Expo connection onto the tower. Rocket does still come down, but Betfas takes a really nice win against Bad Bunny at the very end there, and he is giving him the global tourney emote, so maybe he doesn't really like Bad Bunny or just doesn't like the matchup. Either way, really impressive win by Betfas against Logbait. And so key takeaways there, Betfas went for Xbows, not just all the time, but went for Xbows mostly to force out rockets, and also when Valk was out of cycle. But later on in the match, he started outcycling the rockets and going for Xbows to punish Bad Bunny's slower cycle. Logbait is a bit slower cycle than Xbow, especially if they have Valk and not Knight. Valkyrie doesn't really provide much value compared to Knight for the extra elixir cost, because it does slow down their cycle. So that's going to be one saving grace of the Valk in this matchup. And one really interesting thing that I noticed was Betfas was going for archers in the same lane a lot of the time, especially against the Valkyries. So that is not something I would ever do. I would actually usually just split archers, but Betfas is choosing to go in the same lane, and I guess it's something I could consider trying out myself with through an Xbow Cycle. So I think I will after watching that. But one other takeaway, Betfas didn't let any barrels connect. He did miss one goblin at the start, but not a big deal. And other than that, he caught almost all of the tricky barrels with the log and didn't waste log on offense too much. At the very end, he got a really nice log on guards and Princess. And he also went for a lot of pre-Teslas in the left lane, just shut down any princes at the bridge opportunities. Betfas also got a really nice connection, and the one time he got a big connection was because he fireballed, or a really good offensive presence, not even a connection, was because he got really nice fireball value on the Tesla. So that's going to be one huge way you can make a connection against Logbait Tesla, or just any of these Tesla decks, such as minor wall breakers with Tesla or Goblin Drill with Valk Tesla. If you want to break through, you're going to have to get really good fireball value against it. And so that's what Betfas did. He also hit the princess at that time. At the very end, he knew he didn't need log and cycle for the Goblin Barrel because it was last 10 seconds and he could just get an Xbow to constantly pressure, not let Bad Bunny go in. And that's why he was able to get a really nice log on both the guards and the princess and walk away with the win in that Logbait matchup. So Betfas is into a match against Nexus Icebow, who is going to be one of the best Xbow Archer Queen Rocket players in the game right now. He usually finishes really high in ladder, like top 50, top 100, and also commonly pushes to #1 in the entire world earlier in the season. So we'll see what Betfas does against this matchup. It's going to have Valkyrie, Rocket, and Tornado as well. So Xbow mirror match, but not really, because it's pretty different decks, but Rocket comes down, and Betfas was fine going for a knight there, because if Nexus went for a Tesla, he just would have lost straight up. So, and Betfas was fine just sacrificing the knight against the Rocket there, because he is still going to be up elixir. And now he's probably going to outcycle this Rocket. It is single elixir. Against heavier decks, you can usually punish them better in single elixir, so we'll see what Betfas does here. Already cycled 3 cards actually, so he's going to split archers, and he's already going to be back to an Xbow. And I believe Nexus is still at least 2 cards or 1 card away from his Rocket. So Betfas, he does go for a Tornado, Betfas goes for an Xbow, and Nexus is going to be forced to go for a Valk, and he's now back to Rocket, but Betfas does a super smart pressure move there with the Knight. And Archer Queen's forced out, but Knight is on tower right now. Betfas also logs this back and goes for E-Spirit for the Queen. And just flawless micro gameplay with Betfas right now, with an Xbow connection in the left and a really smart Knight in the right. So he has really good damage in both lanes, and he's actually going to make Nexus give up. So just unbelievable gameplay from Betfas right now. Just made one of the best Xbow Archer Queen Rocket players in the entire game just give up in single elixir. So really smart pressure, forced out the Rocket, and then went for split archers, went for an Xbow with one of them, went for a Knight with the other, and just really smart pressure against a pretty difficult matchup as the game goes on. So I would say in this matchup, you should probably punish them early on, as Betfas did here. So just really smart gameplay overall, showing how good of an Xbow player he is, taking out another Xbow player like that. And that is going to conclude today's video, so I hope you guys enjoyed the Betfas gameplay right now. Again, like I mentioned, he is basically one of the best Xbow players in the entire world, with his insane finishes and insane performances, and after 7-4 retired, amazing players like Aragon and Titan switching over to Xbow Archer Queen. He's one of the only few players left at top ladder playing 3.0 Xbow Cycle with archers. In that season, the previous season, January 2022, there were also quite a few other archers players. There were people like Archer Master, who was able to push above 8,300 trophies, I believe, which is just also really impressive. But I believe that was the next highest 3.0 Xbow player in the entire world that season. Betfas was the only one who pushed above 8,300 plus and went all the way up to 8,600 and above, as I showed you in the videos and matches today. So just ridiculous talent coming out from Betfas right now, and one of the best players to watch if you're trying to learn Xbow. And so I'm not sure if he has a Facebook or any other easy way to watch, but I do still enjoy recording his gameplay myself, talking to him about Xbow in general, and sharing it with you guys for you guys to watch, since it might be difficult to find in other places. So hope you enjoyed the video. I usually don't do a video like this where I commentate over someone else playing. I do also think it's a bit I don't want to disrespect their gameplay, like I said, by acting like I know everything about what he's doing when I obviously don't, and he's a much better player than me. But also I do have quite a bit of experience with Xbow, and so I wanted to give a bit of an insight into his matches here and the matchups that he played against in general. But yeah, just insane gameplay. Was able to beat some of the hardest counters to Xbow in the entire meta right now. all back-to-back as well. So just ridiculous and very talented player. Thank you so much for watching, though. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about the video of commentating over Betfas' gameplay. Let me know if you enjoyed it, if you'd like more of it, or if you have any other video suggestions, such as this one. This was suggested by quite a few people, so for those of you that asked for it, I hope you enjoyed it, and hope you were able to learn something. Even I was definitely able to learn quite a lot from analyzing Betfas' games. But yeah, that's going to be the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you enjoyed it in the comments below. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.